The Space Marines, the supreme warriors within the Imperium of Man, humanity's greatest defense against the dark forces in the galaxy. Who are they? What are they? And where do they originate from? Today I will briefly run down the origin of the Space Marines and how they are organized and function within the Imperium of Mankind. As is, the Space Marines are organized into roughly 1,000 chapters. A chapter being a unit of the military. Each chapter number roughly 1,000 of these superior warriors, which are then broken down into 10 companies, each with 100 troops. The chapter itself is entirely self-sufficient, a miniature army unto its own. They are equipped with spacecraft and can respond rapidly to any threat that poses the Imperium. Each chapter, each unit is incredibly proud of its individual history, heritage, and achievements. As such, they individualize themselves, different colorings, markings, aesthetics, which were established upon the chapter being founded. These individual colors and markings are proudly displayed on armor, vehicles, and banners. The war gear of a Marine is meticulously maintained. Many are even intricately marked with scripture, detailing battle honors and successes in campaigns, victories proudly displayed for everyone to see. Space Marines are armed with the gruesome bolter, a truly horrific weapon that fires a mass reactive shell that explodes within the flesh of the target. They are also protected by their iconic power armor. This shields them from most attacks and even aids the already superhuman in landing powerful blows. But where did they come from? What is their origin? The Space Marines can trace their origins back to the unification wars on Terra in the late 30th millennium, when of course the Emperor of Mankind first revealed his existence and led regiments of the deadly, genetically engineered soldiers known as the Thunder Warriors. This was in the Great Campaign to unite all of the myriad techno-barbarian tribes and nation-states of Terra under his one singular rule. From the outset of his retaking of Terra, the Emperor employed genetically modified warriors within his forces, and in these early enhanced troops lay the origins of what would later become the Space Marine Legions. During the Age of Strife, known as Old Night on Terra, the cradle of mankind had seen more than its fair share of augments and super soldiers created both from bioalchemy and cybernetic augmentation. But it was the Emperor's own Thunder Warriors, named for the early Thunderbolt and Raptor's head heraldry used by their master in the Imperium's earliest days, that were to prove superior to all of them. These particular superhuman warriors were a mix of unprecedented superhuman physical power, gene-programmed resistance to environmental and even psychic attacks, and they had a warlike spirit and shared the Emperor's own strategic genius. The Thunder Regiments were an army unlike any that had come before them, and the forces of the powerful tyrants of old Earth had nothing to match them. This unification of humanity's homeworld marked the beginning of the Imperium of Man and the Emperor's quest to reunite all of humanity under his singular interstellar government. This quest was intended to prevent his race's extinction from the growing threats which confronted the human-settled galaxy in the wake of the Age of Strife. But despite their many early victories in the Unification Wars, the Thunder Warriors were far from perfect. Some were mentally unstable, while others suffered catastrophic biological failure after an unprecedented span of years as their own superhuman physiques turned against them. It seems obvious in retrospect that the Emperor knew early on that a more permanent and stable force of enhanced warriors was needed. So even while the Thunder Warriors waged war in their early days, the Emperor gathered about him a team of savants and gene wrights. Some were willing and others were captives taken from his foes. They began constructing new genetic laboratories deep in the vast dungeons of his Terran fortress beneath the Himalayan mountains. Deep within those dungeons they laboured for decades in absolute secrecy, This resulted in the creation of the Primarchs and other wonders of genecraft known and unknown. Foremost amongst these were the Space Marine Legions. Into their creation went all of the secret history and genetic lore of the Age of Strife. Hard wisdom gained through the success and failure of the Thunder Warriors and the Emperor's own genius. First among the Space Marines were hand-picked men drawn from the Emperor's personal bodyguard. These volunteers were subjected to surgical, genetic, and psychological modification. With rigorous training and appropriate mental conditioning, they became not only immensely strong and tough, but iron-willed and disciplined. An unstoppable force whose loyalty to the Emperor was unflinching. Quickly, the process became more refined, and the numbers of the new enhanced warriors, at first armed and armoured as the Thunder Warriors had been, grew swiftly. The first Astartes were organised into 20 distinct regiments, numbering no more than a few hundred warriors each. Although it remained a dire secret at the time, it is now widely believed that this division was more than a merely administrative one, as each regiment contained variant gene seed encoding drawn from a different primogenitor Primarch. This often manifested its influence in subtle and unexpected ways, not least of all in influencing the psychological character of the genetically enhanced warriors. With the regiments expanding rapidly into 4 legions with the intake of new blood from the areas of terror that had already joined cause with the Emperor, the new warriors quickly eclipsed and replaced the mighty but far less disciplined and unstable Thunder Warriors. As the Space Marine Legions were unleashed in the latter days of the Unification Wars, victory followed victory in quick succession, thus proving their worth. As time went on, the Space Marine regiments became legions, as the Emperor recruited men from amongst the newly conquered tribes of Old Earth, and the hundreds of Astartes in service to the Imperium swiftly became tens of thousands. These superhuman troops dominated the wars of unification, easily defeating all their Terran opponents and forcing the tech priests of Mars, who had intervened in the conflict on Terra, to sue for peace. The Space Marines fought with righteous zeal, and it was they who first referred to their mission as a crusade. By their efforts, for the first time in unrecorded millennia, the Earth was united under the rule of one man, and the armour they wore was not new, but the same partially powered armour that had evolved on Old Earth and was worn by the elite of both the Emperor's armies and the techno-barbarian tribes that they had fought against. Some of this Thunder armour, first named for the Thunder regiments that were the Legion's forebears, were newly forged, but the Emperor's warsmiths also took or cannibalised many suits from the armories and corpses of conquered foes. And, as if to mark a break from the wars of the past, the armour of the first Astartes was cast in storm cloud grey, and bore only the thunderbolt and lightning marks of Imperial unity. Over time, the Space Marine Legions gained their own marks of distinction and character, and names, Emperor given in some cases, others by the Primarchs. So although the Space Marine Legions became something of near myth and legend, truly righteous and superhuman, they can trace their origin back to genetically engineered soldiers, the Thunder Warriors. Without the issues that the earlier Thunder Warriors had, the Space Marines would truly not have become the powerhouse that they are today. So that is the origin and somewhat the function of the Space Marines. Hopefully you enjoyed this mild return to Warhammer 40k. If you did, please do give it a big thumbs up, as that really does help the channel out. And give it a share on some social media, as again that helps get the video out there to more people. And as always, I would love to hear any and all thoughts down below in the comments section. If you're new to the channel, then please do hit that subscribe button to stay notified of all my future content, and check out the other videos I have to offer. If you're not already, please do follow me on Twitter over at Mr. H Reviews. There is a link in the description box. And as always, I've been Mr. H. Until next time, I will catch you in the comment section.